Hello and welcome to another edition of Contact with the Beyond Paratalk. I'm your host Markus Verneutzer, and once again with us today, Professor Jeferson de Souza. Hello, Jeferson.
Hello, my greetings here from Brazil. I'm here speaking from the city of Maringá, in the state of Paraná in Brazil.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. The interesting thing is about the topics we'll be talking today. I'm going to let you do this introduction.
And our topic is today the Chronovisor and Projekt-Cronos. Professor Jeferson, what can you tell us about Father Ernetti and the Chronovisor? The story took place in 1900, in the early 70s. What do you know about it?
I would say there was not exactly what happened, because everything starts way before that. Everything happened in the 30s. It's nothing to do with the chronovisor yet. It has to do with the matrix from where the chronovisor came from. So, in order to talk about this, we're going to talk about a super secret project which very few people know about, which is Projekt-Cronos. Projekt-Cronos was an initiative made during the administration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We hear about 1930s, and a group of people, amazing, wonderful minds. Some minds are really bright and generating a light of their own, and others, I cannot take the geniality from them, but they also link it to terrible things. I'm going to tell one thing. Everything which happens there start to mold during the 1930s, precisely about 1938, and goes all the way about 1949, when things start to get a little intense. They are gathering a group of scientists, special minds from all over the world. Who were gathering that? Was a special intelligence group, which people don't like to talk about them. I'm going to mention them to you here because that's something, we should be talking about. But they are very, very, let's see my notes here. They are very, very intense. We're talking here about the division inside of the administration of Mr. Roosevelt, which are behind a lot of things, which are behind about secret projects. There was a time existed something called the Department 54. Just few people knew about Department 54 and how, he was not yet connected to the Department of Defense, because this happened when existed the Department of War. So they are interested in the possibility to avoid a war if you could eliminate the events who led the war. So that was the whole idea. So according to some physicists they have there, a lot of minds start to get together.
Could you mention here some names?
Yes, I can mention Enrico Fermi. I can mention Nikola Tesla. I can mention Albert Einstein, for starters. And around them, they came with the idea, which time was not a measurement. Time was not an abstract concept, but time was an energy that could be manipulated properly. So they came with the idea of a meta wave particle, which is going to be the base of all existence, not just in our universe, but every universe. Because you're going to be really surprised to know in the like mid-30s, Tesla and others, would already be talking about things like that, about time and as an energy. So they really truly believe that time could be assessed, the time could be taken, and time could be controlled. So at the moment they came with that, they came with a meta wave particle they call the chronotron. So the chronotron is supposed to be a time particle. It was not exactly a particle, it was a wave particle. But according to them, just one thing could manipulate that kind of energy. They need gravity. They need to be able to control gravity, because only the strength of gravity could actually to steer the powers of the chronotron fluxes. So they isolate another metaparticle called the graviton. And the graviton was to be made in frequencies, what they call harmonic frequencies. And this way, you not only control the intensity of gravity, but exactly the properties of the gravity which you're going to give, because they discover of gravity have different properties, not just the property of we imagine. It's another kind of properties for gravity which made gravity capable to interact in the space-time continuum. So basically, right now, our scientists are trying to understand the mechanisms of the black holes and how basically everything connecting a black hole is based on gravity fluxes, because it creates a gravity pull so strong that even light is capable to escape from that. But in the boundaries of a black hole, you're going to find one thing called the horizon event. And the horizon event, that basically is a chronotron field, a natural one. So what was the idea they have? They need an energy source stronger than anything they ever had in that moment, or probably anything we even have nowadays. Because to generate the kind of energy they needed, have to be something vastly superior to a nuclear generator. Imagine what on earth gonna be stronger than a nuclear generator in a time of they allegedly don't even knew what this means.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found out exactly the answer. Not from Earth. It's the only source of power you could have to generate the energy necessary to actually create a graviton field enough to create a quantum singularity, which is the base of Projekt-Cronos. They find out one thing too, that was impossible to travel in time in the same timeline. Would be impossible for them. Why? Because they have like an army of the mathematicians using all sorts of theorems of you can imagine, and their equations all back in the same point. If you end up going to your own past, you're going to eliminate the future you came from, because you're going to create a time paradox.
This paradox, for the person who would live this paradox, he would come every time to a point where he goes back. and his action would basically, the future time after the paradox, maybe eliminate, or
Exactly.
it would
Not
split
eliminate.
up.
He wanna like create a total different future. Which
Exactly.
future
So
for them, which was the present of the person who actually left. So they said, what are you going to do in a circumstance like that? How you proceed? So they have the idea. The only way to proceed in such circumstances was using parallel universe, which are not parallel, because the universe was parallel, you're never going to achieve them because they're going to be like side to side. You're never going to intervene for that. So the broader term are going to be alternative universes. I say parallel universes for the general recognizing of the word, but no, it's called the alternative universes. So they said the only way Projekt-Cronos will work if, number one, they have a source of energy capable of something akin to the heart of a neutron star. And how we going to generate this kind of things in the 1930s? So make no idea, but they had it precedents. And the president came from Texas in the late 1800s from a place called Aurora. It's a little town on Texas, which they mention the crash of an alien spaceship. So this alien spaceship fell not only in any place, but fell in the farm of the local judge. So it was not just a regular person, it was a very important person in the town, was a well-known person, and a person who have no reasons to create and fabricate a crazy story. Of course, a lot of other people said, oh no, what crashed there was not an alien ship, there was what they call these strange dirigible machines that they start to see in the late 1800s. Was a time with a lot of strange aerial vehicles start to appear by the United States. And nobody could explain the origin of them because nobody never seen something like that. They thought it was like a dirigible, like a balloon, like a zeppelin or something. No, it was not that. We're talking about something which have extremely advanced technology in such ways we can even recognize as technology. So what happened? What happened is they said of one of these things they found was some sort of power source. And this power source was retired from this place over there in Aurora. And that was what they used to power up the device, which supposed to be the first tests of Projekt-Cronos. But they have a lot of problems. For example, first they try with just objects, and the object didn't cross it. When both cross, lose integrity and they never could arrive in the point of the desire. Other thing was navigation. They imagine of according to the frequencies you use by a higher or a lesser harmonics in the fields, you're gonna have an idea of you're gonna go to a past or a probable future. And I say probable future because they never could go to a single future. A future line was with so many threadways, so many openings of navigate was a nightmare. So they keep making readjustments, and nothing worked. So after 1945, the United States started a project called Project Paperclip. This Project Paperclip supposed to take the brightest Nazi minds and bring to United States, give them protection, give them resources at exchange of their knowledge. And I'm gonna put two people basically, which made a lot of difference in all that. One, no doubt, was a Nazi. The other one was still uncertain, but in the
So you say it
records of
was
paperclip,
Wernher von Braun? Wernher
they
von Braun?
have Werner von Braun, but they have Oppenheimer.
Mhm.
So Oppenheimer never was proven to have any direct connections with the Nazi government, but he came to Project Paperclip. So that makes suspicious to everything else. So the interesting point in all this is with the minds of Werner von Braun, which was the man who created, the V bombs, V1 and V2, which make all that horrible, deaths over there, especially in the United Kingdom. When he came to the United States, he became the father of the National Aeronautical and Space Administration. He's the man who actually built NASA. And all the rocket projects they have are all designed by the father of the rocket industry in America, which was Werner von Braun. At the same time,
the whole success, what they had in the United States after the Second World War was lost from the Nazis, all what they achieved after it is only basically because they took the scientists from Nazi Germany from this time and used their own knowledge, knowledge from the Nazi.
So with the new knowledge, new additional knowledge coming, for Oppenheimer and coming from Werner von Braun, added to Nikola Tesla, added to Enrico Fermi, added to Albert Einstein, they also have one thing they needed. The only way to stabilize navigation to Projekt-Cronos would be acoustics, sound. So they need a specialist on sound, somebody who must to understand the principles of sound in a very great level. So they find an Italian. This Italian was a professor, what they call prelophony. Prelophony was music before the year 2000. So the name of this specialist was Father Pellegrino Ernetti. Father Pellegrino Ernetti was specialized in sound and sound frequencies. So when Father Pellegrino Ernetti joined the Cronos project, they have the last piece they needed for the functioning of the gateways. So they have these portals, which they're supposed to use to navigate. So they need the frequencies of Father Pellegrini going to provide them. This way they could direct the traveler to a past or a possible future, but not their same timeline, an alternative universe. And what I mean by alternative universe is a universe almost like ours, but with this
only slight differences. There's you, there's me, there's everyone else, maybe a different job, maybe living in a different place, or looking slightly different than we know this person. So it gives a variation of universes. They're very similar, but in some universes far away where still exists the same person, maybe his name is Professor Jeferson Souza, but he's looking like Marcus.
Exactly. Imagine a place, for example, which the Vikings ruled the world, imagine another of the Roman Empire, they never fell. And they control Earth. It's unifying under a Roman Empire. So all these possibilities they found using Project Cronos. But the most important thing about Project Cronos, and one thing we interested extremely, to Father Pellegrino, was the sending of astronauts to the time of Jesus. So Project Cronos allegedly sent these astronauts in a special capsule, which was extremely advanced for that time. And I tell one thing, until they make Project Cronos to work, there was already practically, even if this started with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when this actually was moving to an effective result, we're talking here almost 10 years. So there was much more. Many things happen until things get the way they wanted. Don't think it was just an easy project and everything, and people died, people must then knowledge the beginning of that stay right there. So if Project Cronos existed because of Enrico Fermi, existed because Albert Einstein, existed because Nikola Tesla, even if they are not around anymore. But that knowledge, when they start the process, that makes Cronos to continue. So by mid-60s, at what I talk, the astronauts, the way they allegedly went to the times of Jesus. An interesting thing is they said the records of this allegedly, and now I cannot affirm that, please, no one say if I make an affirmation, because I have no way to prove that, that's just a rumor, but I supposed to inform you this rumor anyway. Everything about Project Cronos was sent in manuscripts to a Spaniard writer called J.J. Benitez, which ended up writing a series of books called The Trojan Horse, Cavalo de Troia. I'm not affirming of this happened. I'm not affirming of this came from Project Cronos. I'm not affirming anything. I'm just I'm informing for you a rumor, and I want to put this on record to make sure here, because it's a responsibility to give information. When I give you information, I have to give you the precise information. So
in general, if we speak about hidden project, or covered up project, the information what we have is every time the information what we can find. It doesn't mean it is the 100% truth what we can present, but it comes very near to the reality what was going on.
Especially because one thing is, everybody comes to you and said, can you prove what you're saying? And I said, well, if I actually could prove without a doubt what I'm saying, I'm not going to be saying that, because this interview will never happen. They're going to be stopped. I will be dead. Anybody involved probably would disappear, because if they really want to stop information from going out, when I say them, I'm talking about the power behind the power. That's not conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy fact. It's just you don't supposed to be poking a tiger with a very small stick, because the results you can imagine. So let's just leave like that. So my information here is preparing the territory to talk about the Chronovisor, but it will not be able to talk about the Chronovisor if I didn't talk how Because Father Ernetti alone, he never will be capable to do the chronovisor if the chronovisor was not exactly connected somehow to Projekt-Cronos, especially because we're talking about the power source, which he took a power source thanks to the church. Was not the same power source I referred before, was not the one from Texas, but this one was provided by the resources from the church, which have access to all sorts of very unusual artifacts since its beginnings. It's called the Museum of Purgatory Souls, Museu da Alma do Purgatório, which over there is justly keep all the sorts of relics or strange devices of weird anachronic equipment found centuries ago, and they kept all these things. So a power source which Father Ernetti could use to power up the chronovisor, that was essential, and you only could be doing that with the help of the church itself. Let's put it this way, even popes were involved in that. Specifically is one pope, Pope Pio XII. Pio XII made clear, do not turn public anything about the chronovisor. But during the 70s, everything went public. But let me tell you, we are jumping the story. Let's go back to Projekt-Cronos. They found out one thing. Going to travel to other universe and our timeline had a price. And the price is when the astronauts return, practically they only have weeks to live, because their cells, when came back to our own universe, were so depleted, which they practically they went through the process of degeneration. Is the only way to describe it. Tissue starts to die. They tried to lose everything they could, but it was inevitable. So they find out which the price for traveling to the past was a suicide mission. Because you go, but if you come back, you're gonna die in a matter of weeks. Because there's no way you can readjust any cellular level. So that was the reason time travel was not used right now to avoid wars or anything else, because of the results. So they said, what use on other things? What if you use robots or androids or whatever to send to the past? And they find out of what happens with the first capsule they send there. They have problems with the electronics. They have spare equipment, so they could, with the spare equipment, they could change and be capable to make the jump back. But they find out as the decades pass by, the fields start stronger and stronger, to a point, if you travel to the past, you cannot come back at all, because your electronic equipment will not be capable to be repaired. And depending what you go into the past, you're not going to find out replacement parts. So we're going to be stuck there. So that was one of these reasons why Projekt-Cronos allegedly was stopped. And another thing too, they're afraid of the consequence of meddling with time. They talk about time singularities. A time singularity or quantum event could make an entire different timeline, even during an actual timeline. So, was directives for that. And we know these directives were so important, which abraded the first world countries. All of them, not all of them, the most powerful ones, they gather together and decide to make an accord. When they have one for control of nuclear weapons, they have another one for control in time experiments, because the ways they see it. Of course, as I said, the problem is always the power source. It's not like you're gonna find a crashed ship anywhere, or even if the kind of energy they have would be compatible with the needs they use to make the Projekt-Cronos to work. But anyway, that's what happened. In the disbanding of the different scientists, some for their own lives, others died, others have other things. Father Ernetti went back to Italy, and we know of the being with archbishops, which they explained to them exactly what he saw and the principles of what he's seen. And he said he was pretty sure he was able to recreate not the old aspects of Projekt-Cronos, but they're going to recreate the device they use for navigation of Projekt-Cronos, which was a kind of scope they have. He was pretty sure he could make that with some adaptations, but he state of the problem would be the source of power for that. So I know the place he went. It's called the Church of San Giorgio. Where is this church? Well, that remains to be seen. I'm not going to dwell on this because that's going to open a big can of worms, which I'm not interested right now. But this church have catacombs, and this catacombs is when he and another team of researchers, all clerics, worked in a capable device to cross time-space continuum, reaching different dimensions. He find out one thing: going to the past was easier than going to the future, because going to the future is so many different timelines, possible timelines, which opening branches, which will be opening in other branches, opening branches, of the calculating of them was impossible. They have no way they make enough algorithms. They couldn't predict every one of the branches. So they rather to use one single branch, one single line, which was passed. So that turned to be the easiest aspect of the Chronovisor. But I understand of experiments to see the future were presented. And I know they have some incursions to future timelines. But I'm not going to dwell on this today because this is another subject. But so, Father Ernetti worked and recreate the device which was originally used for navigation of Projekt-Cronos. Because the Chronovisor was not created for you to look into the past like you look in a TV and having your enjoyment watching the past. No. To pierce the timeline continuum was an entire process, was not a single thing and not a thing you could do every time. especially because even use an alien power source, that power source, when used for one burst, shows one burst necessary for make the connection with whatever he was looking for, that one burst going to require at least 3 or 4 months of preparation, and no probably other 6 months after the fact to be able to reproduce the burst again. And they knew of by doing that, they're depleting the residual energy they have, because these devices, they are not infinite. They have a certain power level which is going to be used continuously. You're going to start spending everything, and it's like a battery. You use a battery, you're going to use it until the battery dries, and that's it. The equivalent was the use for the chronovisor. So Father Ernetti, what he did, Father Ernetti and his team were trying to recreate the pet they have originally, one I mentioned before, which was related in the Trojan Horse series of books. They want Jesus. They want to make sure they could be able to connect to Jesus, and that was image. You already have the coordinates. They use it in Projekt-Cronos. So he knew which frequencies they have to use. Because look into the chronovisor. It's not like a TV, which you're going to change in channels and that's it. You have different periods of history. No. You have to adjust the kind of harmonics to see the kind of frequencies you're going to find for different time periods. Some time periods are much more focused by some reason, and others are very, very hard to actually establish a connection. So time travel is not an easy path for nobody, even as simple as just looking at it without actually traveling. But that was what Father Pellegrini did. So finally, they only need one less component, and that component only could be found in the United States of America, and have to be for one of the most difficult places to take from, which was Los Alamos Laboratories. I don't talk about Los Alamos, the buildings. I talk about Los Alamos underground, because it's a part of Los Alamos which very few people know, which has nothing to do with the normal buildings they work with. But the secret projects they work in the underground levels. And there you're going to find the stabilizer. The stabilizer was a key element for the chronovisor to work, because he made it work before, but the short circuits, boom. And every time he destroys a prototype, it's another millions of dollars he needs to be put together to build a new one, because he cannot repair the one. It was not just I just burn a relay, just put another one. No, he thought about trash the entire thing. So they have to start from scratch again. So it was not an easy process, but was done. Because you have no idea the kind of resources the church has. Resources seem like inexhaustible. There's no limits for the kind of resources they have. And finally, you have everything working. And that's how the chronovisor came into play. So where is the chronovisor nowadays? The chronovisor is inside of the Museum of the Purgatory Souls in the Vatican.
It seems like that it exists more than one. If I can, as a researcher, believe some sources from the other side, they told me the Chronovisor would be in Saudi Arabia. This I got.
Let me tell one thing to you.
Mhm.
The original Chronovisor is in the Vatican. But a lot of other countries with resources enough to provide the same technologies could easily make the same thing based in what they steal, all the plans they steal from the original Project Cronos and the original Project Chronovisor. So that was the reason in Saudi Arabia you have it. That was the reason in the government of China you have it. And that was the reason of even Russia has it. So you are right. It's more than one Chronovisor, but not Chronovisor. Chronovisor alike.
Mhm.
Because the original Chronovisor is in the Vatican, the one made by Father Netti. All the other ones are based in the design and the schematics of they could gather from the original Project Cronos and the original Project Chronovisor.
Do you have information about what kind of parts they had to use? It was spoken about a kind of antenna, what is not complicated to make, power source, like you said. Do you have about the parts informations?
Okay, the idea of the antenna, there was a ruse. First, because what they need is some sort of a device who actually could differentiate the frequencies, because it's a combination of three things. You have acoustic frequencies, you have light waves and electromagnetic fields. The combination of these three are the base in how you can pierce time-space continuum, which is the base what you're gonna have in the boundaries of a black hole in the horizon event.
Mhm.
But the idea of the antenna or simplifying the thing, there was a ruse they put there to actually mislead people in thinking the ingenuity of the simplicity to actually build even schematics, alleged schematics of the Chronovisor were put out to people. And believe me, the church never would allow the real schematics to go to people. Because do you imagine of one of their biggest secrets just come out? So if it's such a big secret, how come I'm here today telling you this? Because the church believes in one thing. It's called the open secret. What's an open secret? An open secret is like this. I have a secret. I don't want nobody to know. So what they're going to do, I'm going to allow someone to tell the secret and going to end with elements which are they are so far-fetched,
Yeah.
which nobody going to believe in the secret anymore. That is how enters the antenna there,
Mhm.
or the schematics or the chronovisor.
Mhm.
They are the ones who leak it out to make sure all the people going to see, hey, if it's so easy, how come everybody don't have a chronovisor in their own home?
And here we have directly a connection that Father Ernetti told the press what they found, what was possible, and then the church said, oh no, this is all a big lie. Here we have the connection to hide the truth in this way that you tell people what we found out. But
The thing was so bad, which they force by not by direct threat, but threat to his family, to Father Netti, in the moment of he was dead, he needs to confess of he made everything up. He was forced by the church because he said, not only you were relevant, you are dying anyway, but people you care, people you share, that people, they're going to be paying if you don't do what we want and what we want. You want to go there to people and said you made up this entire thing. This never happened, which is another thing they like to do as well. So that was the reason. Still records saying of the very father Nettie are the one who confess of there was just an elaborated hoax, when we know for a fact when the hoax involved hundreds of millions of dollars, that's no hoax. People joke with a lot of things, with a lot of money, a lot of that kind of money, because that's when you know something serious or not. Because if a cheap thing, nobody cares, it's cheap. But when the thing is extremely valuable, well, that takes a total different direction. And that is the case of the Chronovisor. Because hundreds of millions of dollars was expended in the prototypes only until an effective device was actually built and used in the satisfactory expectations they have. At the same time, only after that, which was the schematics vanish or being copied by someone. And that was the reason things like that end up in Middle East, end up in Asia, and some say even Europe. Because the United States were headed, so they don't need to take anything for nothing. They just already have it. From the very beginning they have it. Was born there. But
Professor Jeferson, we are almost over with the time. I want to tell the audience that we see us again, and we are going to speak about more project. Our next project is going to be Apollo 18 and 20. Officially, it didn't exist, but there are different information out there you want to share with us. And it's going to be very interesting as well. I
absolutely, because you're talking about the 3 missions NASA said never happened. First, Apollo 18 never completed. So everything, Apollo 18, we know it existed, but they never actually would accomplish. A lot of circumstances we're going to be talking about happened, and they're being rescued by Russians with the Soyuz. So, but 2 of the Apollos, Apollo 19 and Apollo 20, because I need to tell you what happened to Apollo 19 and what they saw to get on Apollo 20, which really blew up the expectations of everybody, because what they found there was something which I would say changed history for everybody. Of course, a lot of people said, conspiracy theory and a lot of, nonsense, until records start to appear and the very astronauts start to talk. That we're going to be talking about.
Exactly. And I hope our audience is curious of our next interview here on this channel with Professor Jeferson de Souza. Professor, thank you so much for your time, and we see us next time. Take care.
My pleasure. Until next time.